Good evening. I am Phyllis Logan, the host for the Chicago Westside branch NAACP. We are live interactive talk show this evening. 312-738-1060. We have a jam-packed agenda. I want to get out as much information as I can as possible to you this evening. And as always, we want to thank CAN TV for allowing us to be on the show. Once again, for those in our audience, for those that have family members who cannot view our show because of a cable channel, you're not on cable channel or Comcast, they can always go online at cantv.org/live and still participate in the conversation. You can hear us via your computer, and then you're still able to call in and ask your questions or make your comments. So this evening's topics, we want to update you on some of our national NAACP offices talks, conversations that they've put out for us this week. We want to continue to give you an update on our community benefits agreement, give you an update on that, and then to also invite you to some other community events. We're going to talk about the school closings. There was a community event this past week that talked about not allowing any more school closings on the west side as well as the south side of Chicago. And the Chicago west side is really, right now, we're rallying, putting out a rally cry for a new high school on the west side. Going to give you some updates on the I-290, the Eisenhower construction project. Once again, talk again on and keep you abreast of the state of housing in Black America and the lending institutions. So we'll have a guest next week to elaborate more on that conversation. And then we want to give you some information on our past Friday's event. We had a contractors calling all trades forum. Great outcome, and we're going to talk about some of the questions and comments that came out of that. So to start off first, for many of us who call Chicago our home, how is it, I just can't get past this question, how is it that we are not part of the revitalization process that is going on in Chicago? This is a question for you, the audience. The Chicago Westside branch, as you know, we have brought this topic to your attention for many years. Many years. We need to hear from you, the stakeholders, the residents of the many zip codes within Chicago. Doesn't matter whether it's Westside, Southside Chicago, just the city of Chicago at large. The NAACP, we truly cannot fight this fight by ourselves. We need you to help us out. We need you to be a part of it. We're constantly fighting civil rights. I mean, we have game changers in the on the issues in the areas of health, education, civic engagement, housing, economic sustainability, environmental and climate injustice, as well as criminal justice. And how can you not be a part of this? Your voice needs to be heard. In my opinion, you know, I'm concerned that families who live in Chicago on the west side, south side, north side, east side, it really doesn't matter, are not participating in this conversation. If you live in Chicago and if you pay taxes toward Chicago's expenses, you're part of Chicago's revenue, you should demand that your voice be heard. There's so much going on with the soda tax right now. There's so much conversation going on with property taxes increasing. There's so much going on with our schools being closed and our kids not being given a viable quality education. It is just too much going on in Chicago. The shootings that are occurring, I mean, the black on black crime is just outrageous, and people ask, well, you know, the population is diminishing. The population could be diminishing because we're killing us off. And it's really sad that we are allowing this to continue to happen. Adults need to step up and let their voices be heard. I mean, be a part of a rally, a cry out, a community forum. You got to voice your opinion, you the adult in the room. We can come together and stop a lot of the violence that's in our communities, stop a lot of the turmoil that's going on in our communities, stop a lot of our elected officials from not doing their jobs within our community if we just step up, the adults that are in the room. 312-738-1060. Give us a call. Give us your questions or your comments. Give us your comments on that as adults in the room, how we can do a better job at preserving our communities. Life is, many times we say life is too short. It really is, but life is also a viable option. You have a right to live a prosperous life. You have a right to live in peace. You have a right to enjoy life. And many times that's not happening in certain communities in Chicago. The Chicago Westside branch, as well as our national NAACP, we pride ourselves in being at the forefront of these issues, but we also need you to join forces with us. The NAACP, along with 500,000 adults throughout the United States, as well as our youth members, are on the front line. We're advocating and we're committed to raising the issues for political and educational, social and economic equality for us that they labeled as minorities. We are an electoral process that our votes do matter, and we need to exercise this right. There's the NAACP, for the record. Many times people ask me, well, how many people are part of the NAACP? Well, nationally, we have over 2,000 adult branches, and branches are within cities. So within the state of Illinois, we have over 44 branches throughout the state of Illinois. And other states will have various amounts of units as well, depending on the number of cities who are actively engaged. We have youth councils where our youth are the executive committee members for the youth. We have many of those, and we have college chapters in 49 states. We have 5 countries in the District of Columbia that the NAACP exists in. And we're increasingly bringing awareness to African American issues and being responsive to our citizens. And I think this conversation came to me by way of last week, this past Friday, and as well as Saturday. Our office received 2 phone calls from families of members, and we receive a lot of phone calls. We have what we call a legal redress committee, and that chair receives a lot of our calls in reference to discrimination, police misconduct, and so on and so forth. But, we had a rally last week, calling out to Mayor Rahm Emanuel that we wanted a seat at the table in reference to police accountability. But when families call because they've had had an incident happen with the police regarding a young black male, we have to respond. And those calls come in not so often, and we're glad they don't come in that often. But the families call, and their concern is, how can we, the NAACP, help? How can we be a voice for them? But we also want to be a voice before incidents like that happen. And we are always crying out to you, our community stakeholders, to be a part of what we're doing. The more there are of us as foot soldiers fighting for our rights, maybe the more our word could get out to help stop the injustice that's going on within our immediate community, but also regarding our elected officials, our agencies that are supposed to represent us. The police are here to serve and protect us. How can we hold them accountable if we're not one voice speaking for them to do that, or against what they're not doing? 312-738-1060. Give us a call. And the family, they want our assistance, and we're providing our assistance. Once we find out what the situations were, then we can move forward to help those families who do call us. But when they call us, it is also good to know that we have members, because we're all volunteers, that we have members who could be a listening ear when they cry out. And that's what our volunteering, our membership means, that we have adequate people on the ground at the forefront who could hear those voices when people call out for help. And as our rally cry went out last week, we had so many people, but could have had a lot more foot soldiers on the ground in front of City Hall. We need to be a voice of one, but we also need to be a membership of many. So I welcome anyone out there to please join forces with us. If you are concerned about the welfare of your economy, how policies are ran, how laws are made, how enforcement is done, and what more we can do for our community to prosper as every other neighborhood and community is doing, you need to join forces with us. Become a member. Our office, as always, give you that information. We're located at 5820 West Chicago Avenue. Our meetings are the first Saturday of every month. We are always concerned about economic empowerment, economic justice, as well as economic prosperity. Our phone number is 773-261-5890. We invite you to be a part of what we're doing. Join forces with us so that our voices could be heard in a louder tone throughout the city of Chicago. September 26th, bring this up again as a civic engagement concern. September 26th was National Voter Registration Day. And guess what's going on right now in the United States Congress? Voter suppression is still ongoing. It's a national issue, with many states coming up with laws to suppress your vote by any, they think, legal means necessary. Whether it's from you having proper ID that fits their standards, such as a driver's license, which back in the old days that was considered a poll tax, with you having to catch a bus or train or drive very far to a polling location. That too, that expense is called a polling tax. We're not counting beans, jelly beans, or counting bubbles in a jar, soap jar anymore. But anything that hinders you from being able to go to a polling booth and exercise your right to vote could be considered suppressing your vote. And we still don't hear enough concerns from you, the community, the residents, on how we can help make this better. It's been said, if you don't have a vote, then you don't have a say in anything. And if you're not exercising your right to vote, how can you really, 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 truly complain about what services are made available to you or not? We have got to do a better job. So elections do matter. Whether we're voting for school superintendents, Cook County sheriffs, senators, presidents, or any elected official, our vote does matter and it does count. We have got to do a better job. One of the other suppressions that's out there is the miscommunication that's being handed over or passed down to individuals who are incarcerated. You're not eligible to vote if you're incarcerated. If you're locked up, if you're on house arrest, if you're confined in any way, you're not eligible to vote. Once you are out of the system, 100% out of the system, you've served your time and your duty, you're supposed to be automatically restored, but you can't do that until you tell us you're back into society again. A very big misnomer is that people who have been incarcerated think that they do not have a right after they've served their time to vote. That's another arm of voter suppression. You have got to be able to say, once you're released from serving your time, doing your time, you've got to be able to say, I need to register to vote. There are so many votes that we're not counting, and all of these elections count. And we're coming up to 2018 for a new election, and that's why we had a National Voter Registrations Day on September 26th. We're hoping that we were able to reach as many people as possible, but voter registration continues on. So once again, feel free to call our office and see when our next voter registration drive is going on at 773-261-5890. 5890 so that we could either come to a location or have a location near you. We've been in many churches. We've been in many libraries. Wherever there's a close public proximity to you that we're hosting a voter registration drive, feel free to call our office and see when the next one is so that you can attend that. If not, you could always go down to 69 West Washington downtown on the 4th or 5th floor. If you're registering to vote for the city, it's on the 4th floor. If you want to register and you're in the Cook County territory or for the state of Illinois, you can go to the 5th floor. There's no reason for you to be denied the option to vote if you're eligible to vote. Once again, 312-738-1060. Call in. I'd love to hear your questions or comments on these topics. I've got quite a few. The next thing that's coming up, it's a couple of years from now, before I go to the next topic, we have a caller. Caller, your question or comment? Yes, caller, your question or comment?
I called to correct. Hello,
Yeah, I'm good. How are you? You want to? Hello? I can't quite get it.
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, so I really can't hear you. Can I get you to speak up?
Okay, I'm Richard Barnett, and I'd like to make a correction on something that you said.
Go right ahead.
You said that if you're in jail or if you're incarcerated, you can't register to vote.
It says if you're incarcerated for a felony conviction. So go ahead and correct me. What did I say wrong? What did I not include?
If I'm incarcerated because I can't make the bond to get out of jail, I can register and vote.
Okay. And thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Barnett. My language states an individual incarcerated for a felony conviction. I'm correcting myself as well, is not eligible to vote. But if you're sitting... Go ahead.
That's if you're found guilty. But if you're there because you can't make bond, you can register and you can vote in jail.
So if you have not been convicted of a felony, you can vote while you're sitting incarcerated. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Some people are in jail for 6 to 8 months.
And there you go. And that bond, not being able to pay for that bond is another issue that we're going to talk about later on the next couple of weeks or so, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. So if you're sitting there waiting to go to court or be charged, you are still eligible to vote. That's what the clarity is from Mr. Barnett. Thank you, Mr. Barnett. I appreciate that. The next area that I want to, topic that I want to talk about is the NAACP is suing the U.S. Commerce Department for refusal to disclose records on the preparation for the 2020 census. This is a serious business here. I won't go too much into it, but in 2020, we will have another round of counting individuals who live in our neighborhood. The preparation for the census count is the issue that the NAACP has with the Commerce Department. Normally what happens is that, and we've been researching this, trying to see where they're at in the process with hiring people to go out or getting the material prepared for it to go out, or designating offices within our community for individuals to go and be hired to be boots on the ground to collect this data. The NAACP filed this federal lawsuit under the Freedom of Information Act to hold the department accountable for not producing its paperwork in a timely fashion for the 2020 census. And it's also stating that planning for the census has been disrupted by the president's hiring freeze. That right there puts a huge damp on getting people out there, boots on the ground, to make sure that we're accounting for the number of people within certain communities. We've tried to make this as important and imperative as possible to you, our audience. If you're not accounted for in the neighborhoods in which you live, reside, if the family members are not accounted for, it puts a damper, it hinders the amount of services that come into our communities. It also breaks down the needs for quality education, whether or not school buildings, brick and mortar, should be in our communities. It's also, we know, it's affecting our high school. The Chicago Westside has only, if you go into the Austin community, there's really no high school. Austin High School has been divided in three tiers, three educational tiers, which do not speak directly to public education. We do not have a facility, a high school facility in the Austin community. And, you know, we've got many community stakeholders, leaders, advocates who are crying out to say we need a high school in the Austin community. Well, we can't do that if the census doesn't tell us that the number of students that live within the boundaries of the Austin community are in need of a high school. And that comes from us, the adults, underreporting who's in the household. Schools are funded based on the data from the census. Property taxes are prorated based on the census. Services, public services, are delegated based on the number of people, the population within the census tracts or the community. If we don't have the jobs to count for the number of people in our communities by way of there being a hiring freeze, that's an issue. But if we're also, when people knock on the door and we receive those cards, those questionnaires, if we're not responding, then we hinder ourselves even more. The census, we're going to be talking about it for the next year and a half now, if not the next 2 years. It is so important that we be accounted for. The Chicago Westside is losing ground by way of its population. At the last election, federal election 4 years ago, the Chicago Westside lost over 200,000 people out of its population. That's a huge dip in having to provide for the necessary services that our community needs. So your voice needs to be heard. The NAACP needs you to be a part of what we do. And counting the number of people within our community is important. Let me get on with the I-290. I stated I would give you an update on that. They're in phase 2. Phase 2 of the I-290 construction, they're working on financing and finalizing the scope of work for the project. We're going to keep you posted because there's not only just jobs that should be available coming soon, opportunities for jobs, training. We'll bring you more on the training for those who are skill set, or those that need to go into having the union card to work on the highways. We'll give you more information on that, but there's also opportunities if you're a contractor, general contractor, to get some construction projects based on your status. Either a GC or a subcontractor, some of those opportunities should be available to you. Let me speak real quickly. I talked about the high school. There will be a Chicago Westside branch education roundtable on October the 24th, on Tuesday, October the 24th. We're calling all educators, parents, administrators, elected officials, community leaders, and residents to come out and be a part of bringing equity and education in Chicago public schools. So this will be at our office location, 5820 West Chicago Avenue. And once again, feel free to call the office, 773-261-5800. 5890. If you have any questions, this roundtable discussion Tuesday, October 24th will start at 6:30 p.m. It will start at 6:30 p.m. We have a caller. Caller, your question or comment?
Hello.
Hello?
I'm trying to find out if anybody has inquired to find out if Donald Trump's sons are available to go to war, and his son-in-law, since he's so eager to instigate and declare war. Number two, I want to know what's taking so long to impeach him. I'm 90 years old, and he's the worst I've ever heard. He's a disgrace to not only the United States, to the world. He's a mental case, and I don't know why they don't understand that he's a mental case. And the next thing about it, I think somebody to do something about him spending the taxpayers' money to prove a point, and there are people sleeping in boxes.
Okay.
Please.
Thank you, caller. Comment. Thank you, caller. We, the NAACP, we're nonpartisan. The best we can do as far as being proactive on the for elections is to get people registered to vote, number one, and just constantly pound the pavement to say people need to now exercise the right to vote. We can't take anyone to the poll. We cannot drag and have people kicking and screaming going to the poll. Our duties are to register you to vote, and then just constantly state you need to vote. So we're going to show our office number again. Feel free to call us, 773-261-5890. Be a part of what we're doing. We're so proud of what we do, and we try to do as much as we can for our communities on the south side and the west side of Chicago. But if you don't vote, outcomes may not come the way you choose to. And there's a lot of people chiming in with their voices about how the election came out. We don't control the outcome of the election, but we do encourage people to vote. So thank you, and we'll talk more next Monday, 6:30 p.m., 7:30 p.m. here on CAN TV. Thank you, and have a good evening.